Morning, everybody. Today is July 10th, 2025. We're here for a work session, and can we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, first, I have a couple announcements. Joanne, if you want to mention Saturday at South Jamesport Beach, and Justin, I have a flyer up here in the middle of the table, if you can zoom in on that.
Okay, so I am very excited. This Saturday at South Jamesport Beach, there will be live music by Dennis and Al. They are two local residents from the town of Riverhead that are going to be playing there for everyone's entertainment. Dennis's wife is on our beach committee and said, my husband would love to play for the town. So we encourage everybody to come out, bring a beach chair, come down to the beach between 6 and 8 p.m. The concession stand will be open. They will have a variety of things available, from hot dogs to lobster rolls to cheese platters, sandwiches. It's going to be a great event, and we hope to see everybody there. You do need a Town of Riverhead beach pass in order to park down there. So thank you very much.
Good. And the weather looks like it's going to hold out for Saturday, so that's a good thing. Saturday and Sunday, July 12th and 13th, the Long Island Antique Power Association Summer Show on Sound Avenue starts at 10 o'clock. It goes from 10 to 4. Admission is $10. And Sunday, July 13th, the 11th Annual Jamesport Triathlon, 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. The event takes place and starts at South Jamesport Beach, so there will be some local road closures in the area during that event. All right, first up we have...
Supervisor, excuse me. I also, can I just make mention?
You want to slide that over here?
That would be great, thank you. We have a lot of exciting things going on in Riverhead. One thing I would like to point out is we had a donation of a new litter critter downtown Riverhead at the River and Roots Garden. The North Fork Environmental Council was kind enough to bring us all together and create a Big B, which is to collect recyclables. Your bottles and cans go in there, and I think that it's a great thing for downtown. It looks fantastic. So if you're out on West Main Street, keep your eyes open for the B. Also, next Friday evening, July 18th, Alive on 25 is back. It's going to be a great event. There's 14 different bands. You can come. You can bring a chair with you if you like to come and sit in front of one band, or get up and dance, whatever you want to do, and move on to another one. Local businesses, local restaurants, the local breweries are going to be down there. Local vendors. It's very focused on Riverhead. So we're hoping for a good turnout for that, and there will be fireworks. And then there's an after party kind of downtown is going to stay alive until midnight. Restaurants will be open later than usual. You'll be able to stop in and have food after the fireworks. So it's really going to be a fun night for everybody, for all the families and whoever comes out. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Excellent. Can't wait for next Friday. Okay, first up we have open session. We have planning matters surrounding the possible changes to Article XVIIA, Community Benefit Overlay Zoning Use District, CBC, and that will be with Greg Bergman and Dawn Thomas. Come on up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. You want to ready get going?
Sure.
Okay, so this is a zoning amendment that we've submitted to the board to consider for the community benefit zoning district. which is an overlay district, which would be applicable to the RA40 zoning use district throughout town under certain conditions. This started about 10 years ago. Actually, the First Baptist Church approached the town with the idea of creating additional workforce housing and affordable housing on church property on their Northville Turnpike property. Any zoning that the town board adopts is applicable not just to one property, it's throughout town. So we did a lot of work at that time, and a code was adopted to address the issues and to create additional opportunities for the kind of housing, understanding that we really wanted to address that issue of workforce housing. And so that zoning was adopted, but 10 years fast forward, no project came from the proposed zoning code, but the issue persisted, and so we continued to look at it and work with different community groups to sort of dial in on what was needed and what would work also for the town and the rest of the residents in the town. So I think in the last 3 years, we've been sort of like working on this, and we have a draft now that we think is good. I'll just go quickly through the highlights of it, and then I have 2 other little points I want to make, and then we can talk about what you are thinking. This would allow additional workforce residential development on lots larger than 10 acres and having at least 800 feet of street frontage on a state or county arterial highway. 10% of the residential units in any of these developments would be ownership units, so not just rentals. You would have some condominium component. There's an incentive for additional ownership opportunity built into the zoning, which we think is important and useful. We want to create as many opportunities for our residents to build wealth as possible. Income levels will be mixed, but between 50% and 130% of the Nassau-Suffolk AMI, which I want to go over just quickly. AMI's area median income, it's a federal number that's generated by HUD, and just so people understand, the area median income right now, and it's probably getting updated soon, for Nassau and Suffolk is $164,900. So the median is $165,000 annually. So when we talk about a low income analysis at 50% of that number, a family of 4 would have to be earning $82,450 annually, and they're qualified as very low income at 50% AMI. So those numbers are, you can see how, a lot of different workers in our community would be in that range and not be able to afford any other type of housing. And just to give you an idea of what the rent might be for a one-bedroom person, a one-bedroom in that income bracket would be at least a one-bedroom apartment, $1,546, more or less. And then it's at 60% AMI, it's $1,856, and then at 80% AMI, which is at $92,400 a year, which is still, a lot of people making less than that in a 2-income family. The rent for a one-bedroom is $2,475 a month, and so these are, the kind of numbers that we're dealing with locally. Because there's so much stigma around affordable, the designation of affordable housing, I think most people hearing those numbers would recognize that they know a lot of people in those income brackets, and it's important to maintain the fabric of our community here in Riverhead, which is a multitude of different ages, incomes, races, economics, and everything else. And so this zoning district proposal that we've written would accomplish a lot of those things. I'm just going to hit some more of the highlights. Development is in accordance with the plan. It also incorporates transfer of development rights at the 10 units per acre is the desired density. 70% of those development rights that would be infused would come from town of Riverhead. 30% could come from the county. The county has a bank of rights that are for free. We want to make sure that Riverhead farmers are incorporated into this project, so the housing that's constructed will be offset by preservation in every single case where you put this overlay district. There may be a community center, but the project will have amenities for its residents, including gym, laundry, meeting space, childcare possibly. 20% of the property has to be open and vegetated with passive recreational playgrounds, fitness trails, picnic areas. off-street parking is required, utilities are all underground, and we worked in a provision where the architecture would be a traditional North Fork style architecture so that the buildings would look like they fit in and are attractive. And that's the quick and dirty overview. So we wanted to make this presentation and hope that you, and Greg was kind enough to actually do the
Did
draft.
all the track changes so you
All
can
the
see
track
what-
changes, so you
yeah.
can see what we changed.
I just wish we would have had the track changes like a week before, so that, because I did have some questions, and I don't want to belabor this, with my questions, but my only question about this is, we're all in favor of maybe some tiny home communities and stuff like that, where there's more opportunity for people to buy smaller places and get equity. This code doesn't really fit that. I understand where this does fit, so I would ask that we, continue on with this and look at some places and lower the acreage and also look at other locations and lower the linear square feet, because there are some smaller rectangular lots that may not fit, and you don't need to have, 800 feet off a main road. I think this is good. I think it's a long time coming, and I know that Councilman Rothwell and myself must have went to the Baptist church, 2.5 years ago?
Yeah.
So this is taking a long time.
Yeah.
But do you understand where I'm going? So we could work on code that would look to get affordable housing, but doesn't have requirements of recreation and all these other requirements, but just places where people can afford to live.
I agree with Bob on that. I often think about, the single mom that just has, a child and, wants the opportunity to own as opposed to renting. And I think that somehow we need to find a balance with that.
Yeah, I think our comp plan addresses that a little bit, and, we reduce the minimum, well, it's recommended that we reduce the minimum size from 1,200, which was 1,200 square feet
Yeah.
initially, so that's gonna go away.
We need to go down to something like 600. You have nurses, you have school teachers, you have people, you have young people that, could afford something that's, $250,000 to $300,000 at that building footprint.
Yeah,
And we need to provide that opportunity.
we're gonna have that opportunity on the 246 Griffin Avenue project that we're working on with the county and GGV, so that will be exactly that, a condominium project with
Yeah.
small units and,
Yeah.
between, in a real range where young people could buy something and get their foot in the door.
Yeah, I get the condo, but I'm also looking at the development that was built on East Main, the smaller houses across from Columbia Care.
Yeah, but I mean, those
Siegel
are
Avenue?
What is it?
the green.
Siegel?
On Siegel?
Is that what it is? I don't know the name of the road.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that people
I
have,
see what you're saying.
have
Those
a
are
little bit
1,200
of
square
land
feet.
too. They're
Yeah, but
not in a condo.
that's a subdivision. Those we looked at that. Those are about quarter-acre lots. So those aren't. The problem when you get into talking about like a tiny home development, if someone's going to subdivide a property, if you're outside of the boundaries of the sewer district, you run into health department requirements. Minimum lot size being 20,000 square feet, 40,000 square feet, et cetera. So I mean, unless we come up with some kind of code that would incentivize like a condominium development, which would allow on-site sewage treatment, development of a condominium map. If you're just looking for ownership and you're just coming in, someone wants to develop a subdivision with smaller lots, you run into problems with the health department sanitary.
You
density.
can't, yeah, no, I understand.
Once
but
you get out of the.
You
sewer
can't, well, I don't want to, look, that's a
Yeah, we're
conversation
kinda going
for
off to
Yeah.
another
So
day.
then-
That's
we
that's a whole different.
Yeah,
can
so
of
I do
worms.
want to just for the board, so you
Great
can sort of,
discussion, but,
Yeah,
just so you can sort of consider some numbers, and I mean, we'll be real, we'll use the First Baptist Church property. One of the biggest selling points on this is the use of TDRs and the incorporation of TDRs into the, arriving at the density. So based on the Baptist Church's property size, they have about, the as of right development density is one dwelling unit per 40,000 square feet. So they're at about 14 units as of right. So if they were coming in for a development that was, let's just say, 80 units, The number of TDRs to get to 80 would be 66 TDRs. The way the code's written for home ownership units, which the code requires 10% of those units to be home ownership units, the number of TDRs required is reduced by 2. So by that math, it would require 50 TDRs, 30% of which would come from the county, so that's at about 15. So I mean, if the First Baptist Church project were to come in at about 80 units, we would see 35 TDRs redeemed, local TDRs, meaning, land that's out there that is unpreserved right now, go through the process, so that would result in 35 acres of preservation. I did just want to clarify, so
You're solving the two major issues of the town of Riverhead, which is affordable housing and protecting our agricultural heritage environment together. So that's a great program in that sense.
and I do just want to,
understand that, yeah.
one point of clarification, so the community benefit district is not specific to either the RA 40 or the APZ zoning district. The requirements are, minimum 10 acres, 800 linear feet of frontage on a state or county arterial highway. So it would open a couple of other parcels for potential development, if they could use on-site sewage treatment plant. But again, this could prove to be a valid tool and really get some significant TDRs, which we haven't seen in a number of years. TDRs have come in drips and drabs. I worked on a subdivision that required 7 TDRs. Heatherhead's like one here, one there, but nothing significant. So, the purpose of shifting that density from, the APZ zoning district or, the RA 80 or wherever there's, viable agricultural soils, that's really the purpose of it. You're going to increase density elsewhere while preserving land in the main farm belt.
I always ask the same questions when we discuss affordable housing, so you know what I'm going to ask is basically, how do we make the selection for these affordable housing guided towards current Riverhead residents, the second generation, the third generation that wants to stay in Riverhead and live in Riverhead, that these units are not just picked up by people living in Huntington and Melville that are coming out? Like, how do
Yeah.
we make sure that it's to continue to keep generations here in Riverhead?
The current, fair housing laws will preclude us from limiting it to certain groups for, residency requirements. But I think, it's a local project, it'll be advertised, and, there's, I think, more than likely, there's gonna be plenty of Riverhead residents who are aiming for this. So we'll do the very best we can, obviously, to make sure that the local community is aware of the opportunity and get them to whether it's done by a lottery or whatever it's done by, that's, very clearly locally announced. And then, there are some things I think we can do potentially, but those would be a TBD as we move forward.
That's why I like the First Baptist Church project, only because it basically, it's being advertised on the local basis. In other words, in terms of the membership of the church and the people that live within the area become aware of the project before maybe somebody else does of
Yeah.
West and says, I want to be part of that. And we hope that way the application process is that it would be, that local individuals could put in their applications first and apply before it reaches out and just spreads out
Yeah.
around Suffolk County.
There's no doubt that that's a very important, and I think one of the really bigger impediments to getting affordable housing is the fact that you cannot target your residents or first responders, or, although there may be some wiggle room there. I think people would be a lot more amenable to saying, hey, wow, this is a place where, our family can continue to live in the community that they were raised in. I think a lot more people, there's debate on that at the higher level, whether that's true or not. In my opinion, I think it is true. I think people would be less objecting to it if it was, locally focused. But
In the past, we have had lottery housing, many, many moons ago.
yes.
That's based on funding that is provided for certain projects. They're allowed to do that. But a lottery is, it's random again. Anybody can apply for it.
That, it wasn't
So
just
if you
for
go to a
local
lottery,
residents.
there's no guarantee you're going to get local people. You
I-
can't limit it to just local people that enter that lottery.
But that said, if a significant number of Riverhead residents come in and, sort of
Sure.
stack the deck,
Yes.
the more current Riverhead residents that apply, the better chance they have of being selected in a lottery.
I like that it's not just, we're talking just young families, we're talking about people with intellectual and development
Yes,
disabilities.
that's an important
We're talking
component of
about
this, yes.
seniors, these
Yes.
are all encompassed in this as well.
Yep. Yeah,
I'm gonna take Bob's 2.5 years ago that he met with the Coverdales, and I'm gonna go back 9 years when I first met with him. And I know this project had legs at least a decade before that.
yeah.
So this is really important that this is coming now finally to light, and we're gonna be able to do something to allow that, possibly that project and/or other projects to come in and do exactly what we're talking about, providing housing for our local people. And I know in talking to the Coverdales, that was always their basis behind this. You know, they weren't looking to bring people in from out of town so much. They're looking to provide for their own community. And this does that. And I think we're going to be able to master it so it will, be advertised locally first and first come, first served type of thing. And I'm sure we can accomplish getting some of a majority of our own people in
Yeah.
this opportunity.
Should
I
we tell
love
people
the
to
idea.
start going to church?
Yeah. I love the fact of the home ownership part of this. I know we've been working hard to try to get developers to buy into that. I do appreciate David Gallo, who, with this project, is working with us to do that. And I know the push is for more of that to come down the road, because it is important to have equity in your housing. Young people getting out of school, they maybe start out making a decent salary, but often they're also paying college loans back, and college loans can be a mortgage payment at
Yeah.
times, depending upon the profession and how much school you went and how much you had to borrow. So I think this is a great idea. I'm glad we're finally getting to this point, and I hope the public is encouraged by this also as much as I am.
Yeah, I think it's a good balanced approach to it. And that's partly why it took so long.
So, Dawn, you have the Nassau Suffolk AMI, which for a single person is what? 100?
So a single person is median family income, I think this is for 165.
No, it's a 4.
So for a one person,
About 105.
yeah, 100 and,
Okay. The reason why I asked that, and I'm setting it up so the public knows, the actual AMI in Riverhead is about 75,000.
yes.
And that's important to note. Feds do it, Nassau and Suffolk, that
Yeah,
includes
it's too
the
broad of a
Hamptons.
brush they use to come up with
Absolutely,
these
yeah.
numbers. It really should be updated on a more local, and we've complained about this in the past,
Yep.
Yeah.
because it's very unfair to a town like Riverhead.
But it also just shows you the gap between where we are and where, the general region is at.
Right.
Yeah.
And how much, and I think, let's be honest, we house a lot of the workforce for the North and South Fork.
Exactly.
So, but it's important for our community to have people who can invest and live and take pride in the community. And so renting is great, and that's a great important thing that we have, but also owning. And there's such a gap between, what you can afford to get into a regular single-family house is a minimum, even in Riverhead, of $500,000, and that's just outside the reach of most young people who are burdened with those debts and things that they need. So we have been mindful of that, and in spite of a lot of public opposition, I think, to, affordable housing. And that's why I think it's important to just talk about those numbers and get people to understand what that really means. It's not, it's regular people with a job who are trying to get by and not have to drive 40 miles to work every day and deal with child care issues related to that and all the things, just be part of a community, be able to take your child to the Little League, to be able to watch the after-school sports, to be able to use the local library, all of those things that become harder when you live further away from where you work.
Very true.
It's part of obtaining the American dream.
Agree.
We will move this forward for a resolution on the 15th,
Great, and that'll be the public hearing, and then the
The-
public
yes,
will get
for
to
the
weigh
public
in,
hearing,
and
correct.
we'll take it from there.
publish and post. Good.
And so if the board's good with the current draft, we'll send it over to the planning commission,
Yes.
get their comments on it, and again, the public hearing.
I
can
am
run-
anyway, I'm speaking
Public
for
hearing can run
myself.
concurrently.
Great,
Good.
All right.
Great job.
thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you
Sorry
guys
it
for all
took
the
so
work
long.
you put into this.
Very sorry it took so long.
Yep.
Decade.
Okay, next up for our second item, we have Riverhead Volunteer Ambulance Corps and matters surrounding an update to proposed plans for a new building, a new ambulance barn.
Come on up, gentlemen.
And need I say it's more than a barn, as it has to be. But we understand we might have something to look at today here.
Enough chairs for everybody?
Howdy, gentlemen, how are you?
How you doing?
So we just, we wanted to bring back our building committee from RVAC, along with our architect. We had laid out a few months ago plans, and I think those plans were initially based on, the committee listing all the things that are a necessity, for the ambulance to properly function over there, and what's needed in terms of bays and offices, training centers, storage of equipment, and so forth. One of the things that has been continuous concern as we're getting ready to develop and eventually, shortly, hopefully, to break ground, is that the time in which the ambulance service would be out of that building. And so the plan is, Highway Superintendent Mike Zaleski's been very, very gracious to allow us to use the portion of the property behind the highway building itself, but unfortunately, the ambulance, they're gonna be in trailers at that time. So we wanted to try to cut down the time in which the building is actually constructed. And so, Andy Mitchell has been very instrumental in giving us guidance on how they do things at the hospital, because the same point, when they added on to the ER, they had to close down certain areas, and they didn't want to close them down for a long period of time, so he had suggested perhaps doing something more of a modular style, where the building itself could be constructed off-site, and then it would be less downtime. So once that building is nearing its completion of construction, that's when you would actually then see something on the local basis, where the current ambulance building would be taken down, the site plan quickly readjusted, new slabs put in place, so that a modular type style building arrives on site and to be ready and constructed. It keeps them out of the trailers for a much shorter period of time, and especially going into winter months, we're concerned about the simplest things of medications and so forth in ambulance, and everything having to be, properly stored and keeping at appropriate temperatures and the equipment and so forth. And so there's a lot of concerns, so we want to minimize that downtime. We also looked at the overall costs of things, right? And when we're looking at cost of square footage, some of the things that was mentioned to us was, well, I'll just make it simple. I've used the same thing where, you don't buy a 10-foot beam and then cut it down to 9 foot. If you bought 10 foot, then you use all of 10 foot and you get the most, cost out of your money instead of, discarding waste. And modulars help us do that. So we've made some preliminary changes. I'll let the ambulance company and building crew talk about some of them, but so you're gonna see a little bit of a different building. This is a very unique piece of property that anybody that's walked up there, it's triangular shape, causes great restrictions on where we go and how we develop it, so we're trying to get the most out of everything. So I'll leave our architect and you guys who want to talk, whoever wants to speak a little bit about it first, we'll kind of talk through some of those changes, but because we did publicize and we put out some plans, we want to keep the public engaged. We want them to see the development, the changes. I think we're at where we're going to be, and we're ready to go out for an RFP on this project. And so we really want to give everybody a full understanding of what the building is actually going to look like. So if you want, Chip, can you go over right to the facades perhaps? We'll start there with the front facade of the building. I think that's where the public's going to see mostly of change in the early part of the designs. Perfect.
Okay. So from the previous plan, where it was a two-story building on a slab, we've now changed it where we have the ambulance bay, which have been modified to not only accommodate an immediate need, but also was enlarged slightly to make it simpler to build, but also where there's more room for future needs for the ambulance. Then for the building itself, we've added the third story. And once again, it's also not only to solve an immediate need, but we're thinking, what we did previously was immediate. There wasn't much room for future. So we've modified the building plans to be able to accommodate for future needs as well. We've also incorporated a full basement in this plan now where, things can be stored, and then potentially if needed, we have extra space to work into. The facility was able, the way we designed it with the third floor, created better recreation spaces or gym spaces that are needed, and also training rooms, which was a necessity. So we were able to make those rooms larger to accommodate, a current need as well as a future need itself. Mainly, the building was also modified to accommodate the modular structure, so it could be done in, in a speedy timeline. So that's basically a little bit about the changes that we proposed on the building itself. And guys, anything to add to that?
Yeah, just to clarify, we did have a second story over all the bays, so there was a second story over all those bays, but what we did learn is that the ceiling height in the bays was too low. So our ambulances are all one size, but neighboring departments have bigger ambulances on truck chassis. And for the future needs, having a lot of the hotels, that there may be a need for us at some point to have some sort of rehab unit, so we could have 15, 16 patients at a time when we're evacuating some of the hotels for different situations. So looking at it, and speaking with Ken, he was very instrumental in helping us figure that stuff out, is that the best and cheapest way to do it, instead of doing the second floor over the bays, was to just go 3 stories. So it's
Now,
really
is
the
there
same.
space above the bays?
That's going to be full ceiling. 'Cause we-
Okay.
Fully open.
Originally, it was a
It's more of a
mezzanine.
Morton style building
Right.
on to the left of it.
So besides the basement, that we did add for mechanical and the classrooms and stuff like that, we did. The building's not much more square footage than besides the basement, than what we had, because we had that second floor. So
Right.
I just don't want everybody to say that
So you made up for the lost space going up to
going
the
up.
third
We
floor.
went up instead. Yeah.
I think it looks nice too, actually.
Very smart, you're building into the future. Because you don't want to,
We can be doing this again next year.
well, you could be doing this in 5 years or 10 years, you don't know the population growth, and then what do you got?
The design does incorporate that we will be going to connect to the sewer. So the sewer does go down Route 58. So the bay over to the far left will be like a wash bay that could capture anything, and so any type of oils and things like that, which could be potentially treated, so it protects groundwater as well by doing a separate wash bays. More importantly, though, it's going to protect the life of the equipment. So in the wintertime, we've got to get, even dead of winter, we've got to get the salt off the trucks and things like that, and protect, so we get a longer life out of it. So
And
the
that
wash
bay
bay
would
was-
probably be the decontamination bay, or what you would
Yep,
refer to as a
exactly.
decontamination bay?
Yep, so that's more of a long-term necessity, protecting the lifespan of the rigs and so forth that they purchase overall. And just having proper training spaces, we absolutely need more EMTs, we need more paramedics within the town of Riverhead, so we need a place where we can train them and locally. And I myself, I'll talk extremely highly of the program in which did, but being able to be on hand and physically having ambulance, like we did the training here in town hall, but being able to physically work on an ambulance and bringing equipment down, physically working with the equipment is much different than simply a slideshow. So being able to have the training in the ambulance facility is immense different than somebody taking it in just a classroom setting, to physically be able to walk down, work with equipment and so forth. So they need that training space.
And with the training, if we're doing it at our headquarters, we're more likely to retain members as well, and gain new members.
So we want the public to see, so a little bit of changes. We have also begun our program in terms of we've seeking sponsors and donations for this facility. So we have had a few individuals that have already committed to the project. So we're trying to do everything we can to be cost effective with taxpayer funding. And so by utilizing private donations, so that process has begun. So anybody that's interested could certainly reach out to RVAC and have discussions, but we've put up many different methods in which ways people can contribute to RVAC, to also, from perhaps having names on ambulance to rooms named after them in the facility itself, everything that we can to keep taxpayer money down. But the majority of this, funding will ultimately, we'll be seeking the board's approval to bond it with the idea that RVAC is becoming self-funding in terms of meaning the work in which they're doing by billing for ambulance runs and so forth, they'll be able to pay off the bond. So it's not necessarily going to be coming out of the taxpayer, all residents on an individual basis. It's going to be worked off by the actual work that they do on a regular basis through insurance providers and so forth for the patients in which they're transported.
Do we have an approximate price tag?
That's the goal of today. So we don't as we sit right now, but the goal of today was to put this before, ask any questions, because now it is time to go out for an RFP or an RFQ to put the building out there so we can then determine the actual dollar amount that's going to be necessity.
Okay.
So, but the only way to really do that was to have a final plan. And so, but before we went into that next step, we wanted the board to be able to kind of look at the plans, ask any questions, so that people wouldn't say, well, how did you get from here, from point A to point B? So that's what we want to do immediately, is to go out and be able to put a resolution out.
Oh, okay, so on the backside, you had 2 drive-throughs.
Right.
Nice.
So this is really helpful by putting, a lot of people may look at the plan and go, I'm a little confused because there's not a parking lot or anything in the back, but by putting those large bays, it gives, opens up, number one, for general activities. They have gathering space behind it, but it also helps with emission standards within the building itself. So the back doors can open up just to kind of clear the air out anytime they, when they're having different calls going out. It also does allow them to store trailers and so forth, equipment behind the building if necessary. So as President Garrett had stated before, when you have like these decon units, these other large-sized trailers and so forth, they can be protected. They can be put through the bay behind the building, so they're more in a secure area. And then when necessary, you can simply open up that garage and pull them straight through. So it's a way to utilize that back space as well.
I like the idea that you're going for the future, as we just sat and talked about the overlay district, 80 units in one particular overlay district, or another one that may come in. There's going to be that many more residents that you have to take care of. So I like the idea of building for the future.
I will also say that they have drastically seen, just this year alone, the alarm response is continuing to rise. And we have other large projects, and when we even talk about community development housing and we talk about hotel complexes, the necessity and the need for what RVAC does and the amount of additional equipment that is eventually going to be needed for the future and additional staffing is going to continue. And this is a dire need at this point to increase this facility, to maintain that. So we're potentially looking at maybe 6,000 calls this year on track for that.
We had an 800 call month, which is double what we've ever had before.
Yeah.
So in 1 month.
Yeah.
Kind of slowed down the following month, but
Yeah.
we're just getting into summer now, so
Yeah.
we're starting to get.
So
This is not your grandfather's ambulance one.
It is not.
I still
Times
keep,
have changed, and we need to catch up to them.
I still keep calling it a barn though.
I know.
So I think, got to build a new barn.
I mean, we were just trying to keep it simple. It was cost in mind with it. We're not trying to, we know we have a lot of elderly community in Riverhead, and, just hearing what you guys were talking about before with the medium income and stuff, we're all aware of that. A lot of our members probably fall into that range, so we really are not trying to have a debt service where the taxpayers are coming out of their own pocket. I mean, we are hoping that we'll bond the whole thing right away. This way we can just get going on it and we're not worried about it. But like Councilman Rothwell said, we believe that as long as the price comes in where we think it's going to, we're hoping to cover the debt service totally. So
I think with donations and the building money, we should be able to cover the debt service.
That's good news.
Yeah.
That's really good news.
or a very large portion of it.
Yeah.
In addition, I mean, Riverhead is growing with activities and different events that are taking place. And so people will be familiar with seeing RVAC on events like Alive in 25, private events up at Epcot for the drag racing, all the things. So lots of people don't realize when all these events come to town, it's put right on their lap of like, okay, in order to have this, we need RVAC on standby and so forth. And so they do charge when it goes into, private businesses that are doing stuff. So it's also another way to generate revenue, but it's also, taxing on the staff itself, trying to keep up with that, that they need. So.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Get it done.
Anybody have any questions?
No, I think this is great.
I do too. I do too. I like it a lot. And well-deserved but more importantly, well-needed.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a very nice color scheme too, nice brickwork, nice facade. And as I said all along, some people go, why are they trying to fit this in? They like the spot, they like where they're at, they're centrally located.
It is
they're right
centrally
I think it's a
over
great spot.
And,
Yeah.
and that's important, so like, we were gladly in the beginning to look at other locations and other larger parcels, but being centrally located is what was really necessity to them, right?
Well, also the proximity to the town garage when our vehicles break.
Right.
In an emergency,
Right.
it's right there. We don't have to worry about, how we're gonna get it over there. Mike over at the town garage fixes our stuff immediately and gets it back to us. So the location is really probably one of the best spots we could find in the town.
Easy to fuel as well.
Yes, fuel and
Yeah.
mechanical.
When it's easy to fuel, everybody fuels.
Right.
Right.
And the biggest,
Who left the ambulance on E again?
I mean, the biggest thing too is that everybody knows where the ambulance barn is right now. So
Right.
if you moved it, in the case of emergency, someone could go to the wrong location for
Sure.
an emergency. So I think keeping it where it is and being centrally located, it was a positive.
Absolutely.
And I think it fits the area, with the Agway building crossing, we try to make it blend in
Yeah.
and fit in, so it's not, you're driving down the street and like, whoa, what's this? It's not.
So as one point just to address, we are briefly just going over the standard typical height because it's a 3-story building, but because it's a government building complex, so we will need a small, variance on the height restriction itself, just to get sort of things like we're up at like 45 feet. I think it's basically at 35 is the normal.
Yes.
I think so. We are going to need a variance, but
Do
being
we
as a
know the
government-
people that make that happen?
yeah, I
Oh,
think
okay.
so. So I'm just pointing
I
that
thought
out
so.
now in case
Hoping
anybody
you
had
guys
any
knew
issues, but, it's right off of right off of Route 58, very close to all the other commercial buildings, but it's a necessity, in terms of what's happening there.
And I think that height also helps with radio communications, having
Yeah.
Sure.
the
Good point.
antennas in the, I think we were looking to put the antennas in the house on the
Cupola.
top. Yeah, the
Yeah,
cupola.
so that was the other idea, is just that instead of having anything, we're trying to make it a classy looking building, so inside the cupola is where we can place the radios.
Cool.
So it just makes it look more, kind of gives a little touch of that agricultural style up here in Riverhead.
Which window is the one that's gonna leak, like you have now?
None.
Let's hope not.
So, all right.
Good. Excellent. Thank you, folks. Thanks for
Thank
coming
you all
in,
very
keeping
much
us
for coming
up
out.
to date. And
And we'll do a follow-up
Yep.
meeting with the town attorney's office as well, as to help develop and write out requests for bids, okay?
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Todd. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
All right, next up, we have a Riverhead in Action series. This is featuring Councilman Kern on his debut Riverhead in Action video.
Oh, is it? Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So we will run that in just a second.
Autographs after?
Photographs after. Hollywood's calling for Kern.
I doubt it. I'm in disguise.
Yeah, you are. I have to.
I'm incognito in this one.
Look like you just got off your motorcycle.
Hey, this is Tim Hubbard, supervisor of the great town of Riverhead, and you're watching Riverhead in Action, a media campaign designed to highlight the incredible work of the 350-plus employees that comprise Riverhead's 26 departments and sub-departments, town events, projects, job openings, local businesses, and other town happenings. I hope you find this informative and enjoyable, and thank you for watching Riverhead in Action.
Hi, I'm Councilman Bob Kern. I'm here at Island with Ryan and Kyle, and they're going to give us a tour of the facility. And how long have you guys been here?
So we've been in this facility since 2000 as a company. It seems like every time I come down here, I need a tour from Ryan myself because we've inevitably picked up a new lease on the building, optimized the factory, changed operations between the assembly shops. But what we're doing out of here is a prefabricated building envelope system, which we're sourcing products and goods and materials for domestically, for the most part.
Ryan, how many people work here?
We currently have in this facility around 350 people.
Just over
That's
300.
great. And a lot of those people are from Riverhead.
Yes.
That's really great. What are we looking at here?
In 2000, Island purchased the 5 buildings that we're standing in now, and then purpose-built Factory 707, which you'll see here on this map. Ryan will give us a tour through that later, where we are assembling our large format mega panel and curtain wall building enclosure systems. Those are then fed with material out of one of these shops, previously an airplane hangar, serves now as our CNC milling centers.
So right here is where we run all of our extrusion fabrication for our curtain wall. Right inside this building, we have 10 machines. We run somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000 to 4,000 parts per week. We run 3 shifts. Each one has its own unique capabilities. Right now we're doing a transition for the job, so we're doing maintenance, prepping the machines, making sure they're running, because our next big job is going to take us probably somewhere around like 6 months or so.
And that's all pre-programming, coming directly from our 3D models to Ryan's team here, that he's going to mill and kit parts that we'll see on the assembly line later.
Wow. So, and you have 3 shifts.
Yeah, we run 3 shifts here.
So you're basically running 24/7.
24/7, 5 days a week right now.
Wow. So what's going on in this building, guys?
So we're here in our folding center, and Ryan will take us through a little bit, machine by machine, what we're running out of this factory.
Okay, great.
I'll take you a little bit through the tour. We'll start with the True Punch machine. That is a punch machine that punches all of our caps, any of our unique pans. We had a job, NEU, that had this nice perforated with dimples on it, so that machine did all that work there. We move on to the small AccuPress, the 2 Schroders, and our large 20-foot AccuPress. Those are all folding and bending machines. So those give us all the capabilities to run our front pans, our back pans, all of our bench shapes, everything that we do here. It all starts with the lasers.
Tension leveled sheets of aluminum. They're stocked here, so we see as a raw substrate at a project length. These are then loaded onto the laser. The laser's been programmed based on our 3D models of the building itself to then cut out pre-laser or drill holes, pre-laser out tabs that we're going to be fed right into the bending machines we just saw, into the folding centers, where they're then kitted up and sent right to the factory that we're going to go see next.
Okay, Ryan, what do we have here?
So this is where we do all the small milled parts for all your hooks, your anchors, your brackets, anything that goes inside the curtain wall panel. We do small parts for the field, angles, drilling holes, but these are the more sophisticated machines that we have here. This is an intricate part for one of the panels they designed, and I mill it out of a solid block. You'll do your basic stuff like this as well. So this is your slider. So they drill the hole, they tap the holes here, this gets bolted to the curtain wall, and this gets your hook, and then this sets the height of the panel.
Right in front of us here is the result of all the work you saw previously in the 400 milling centers. These are wrapped, kitted parts, set on cradles per panel. You'll see some of the hook and bracket components that have already been installed and sealed.
I just had this in my hand.
Just had that, right? So that's the slider that Ryan was talking about that moves up and down the level and plumb the panel during installation. These are your frame components. You'll see a blue protective Nitto wrap that'll protect that finish through the on-site installation. Also, what you'll see are kits of back pans. That is our air and water seal on each unit, as well as painted aluminum cladding front pans and the glass, the IGU units that are brought in crates, decrated, put onto an A-frame, and then you'll see here about to be lifted with suction cups by one of the overhead cranes. So all of these parts will either meet on the station base assembly line or run down a linear rolling assembly line.
So the purpose of this?
We call it the carousel. We're able to spin this entire thing around 360 degrees.
That's great.
So it allows us to reuse this structure over and over again. The horizontals, you'll see the through bolt holes running all the way up.
Ah,
That
right.
allows us to set the primary horizontals at any level. So any panel that we need to build for a job for like visual approval of the materials before we buy them can be mocked up here. If it's sunny on one side and dark on the other, everyone goes to lunch, the team rotates this, we come back out from lunch, and you can see the panel in your orientation that it may be in the job site. And it's allowed us to, again, recycle, reuse, eliminate waste.
That's
here at
really
the factory.
smart, very interesting. I see these over here. It's interesting as well.
What you see are past visual mock-ups. On the right is a brick project, punched windows, brick rain screen cladding. In the center, where actually the panels Ryan was talking about earlier, it's a stainless steel with an embossed dimpling
Oh, right,
pattern
okay.
that we use the punch to fabricate each of those units. And on the left is for a tower in Manhattan, the largest single set glass panels in New York City.
Ryan, I want to thank you.
Oh, of course.
Kyle,
Thank
I
you
want to
both.
thank you for the tour and being
Anytime.
part of Riverhead in Action. And I think this is just amazing that you're in our community, and I think people need to see what's here.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for the tour.
Excellent job.
Very good.
Good job. I think maybe we'll get a step.
Hi, this is Tim Hubbard, supervisor of the great
Guys, man, they were
They're
giants.
I know, I see that.
You know what? You know what's lacking from that is just photographs instead of being on the table of seeing skyscrapers that they do.
That they put together.
I mean, that's what they do.
And it's impressive that those are high-tech jobs, and those are exactly what we're looking for in Riverhead in that area.
Yep.
Yeah.
And to do the programming on the equipment and machines, it's not just an assembly worker, it's the programming
Yeah.
involved in design of it. This was pretty impressive.
Yeah,
High-tech.
they have the program. We didn't go to the offices where they do the programming, but they're programming constantly, all those machines.
Excellent.
Unbelievable. A great job again, Debbie, Justin.
Yes.
Nice job. We appreciate it. I love that. That was a great segment.
Did you have your hard hat on, Debbie?
Had to, yeah. Okay, just before we do resolutions, I meant to mention this earlier. Just thoughts and prayers for the people in Texas, in Kerrville. The floods that took so many young children's lives and families and adults. And I was actually in Kerrville about 4 years ago. It is an absolutely gorgeous area. And, the Guadalupe River that overflowed its banks and did all the damage is normally a very beautiful, pristine, clear river. And you look at the stuff on the news and the shots of everything, it's incredible what happened down there. And I just can't imagine that happening to a community. And we offer our thoughts and prayers for everybody involved down there. So, okay, Dev, would you mind doing the resolutions?
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
If everybody has their resos, we'll get started. Resolution number 1, capital project number 72509, resurfacing of the pickleball courts at Veterans Memorial Park.
This is much needed. We've heard from the community that these courts get used a lot. And unfortunately, they're only about 3 years old, and I know we're looking into whether they were warranted. They're outside the warranty, we know that, but we're going to reach out to the company anyway and see if we can, get a little assistance from them on that. But we'll get those up and running in no time, and we don't have to worry about anybody busting an ankle on a crack in the surface.
That's right. Resolution number 2, budget adoption, CP 72510, federal HUD home funds. Number 3, ratifies the acceptance of a cargo truck for use by the police department. Number 4, appoints a part-time court officer.
Good.
Number 5, appoints a part-time court officer.
Yeah, the chief told us he's hiring 2 more part-time court officers to help out in justice court. They have a busy schedule. They have a lot of people in and out of there, and with the current situation, until we get the old town hall completely refurbished for them to use, they need the extra staff for that.
Number 6, appoints a call-in chaperone to the recreation department. Number 7, ratifies the appointment of a seasonal recreation aide to the recreation department. Number 8, promotes an employee to a maintenance mechanic 4. Number 9, ratifies the reclassification of a maintenance mechanic 2 to a maintenance mechanic 3. Number 10, ratifies the resignation of a call-in food service worker. Number 11, authorizes the submission of a youth mentoring grant. Number 12, authorizes funding application to New York State for Consolidated Funding Application CFA 2025 Riverfront Amphitheater. We have Dawn Thomas here. I think she's just going to run through that with you. Dawn, you want to just give them the overview we spoke about earlier?
This is additional funding that's available through New York State for, that can be used for the amphitheater. Specifically, it's through DEC and Historic Preservation, New York State Parks. Because the project doubles as flood mitigation, we are eligible, and it actually is a really nice fit. I spoke to DEC about it. They're encouraging us to apply, so hopefully we get some good results. We're applying for 1.3, which would be basically the balance, a little bit short of the balance needed to finish the project. So we'll see what happens, but we're working hard on the application right now.
The fact that they're asking us to apply is a good sign.
Well, yeah, I mean, not asking, but just suggesting that it's a good fit, so that's what we like to hear.
Good.
Okay, resolution number 13, approve special event Chapter 255 application for the Iglesia Pentecostal Familia de Dios Prayer Walk. Number 14, approve special event Chapter 255 application for the Dark Side Productions Dark Side Haunted House.
This is when you know summer's over.
Yep, yeah.
We're approving stuff for Halloween already.
Number 15, approve special event Chapter 255 application for Wading River Chamber of Commerce Fall Festival. Number 16, approve special event Chapter 255 application for Foodie Fest Productions Annual Summer Foodie Fest at Tanger Outlets, August 30th and 31st, 2025. Number 17, approve special event Chapter 255 application for Halleckville Museum Farm Country Fair. Number 18, approve special event Chapter 255 application for Riverhead Police Department National Night Out Barbecue.
This is something new they're doing, correct? They're actually having a barbecue down at the town square. Have they done that in the past?
You know, we'll confirm with the chief, but I think, unless Debbie knows more about it, but I think they're going to consolidate the locations into one. Is that right?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, makes
Instead of
sense.
spreading them out around town.
Right, otherwise they were all around
Right,
town and it
and I
was
think
hard
they're
to
trying
get around to all of
to
them.
make it a little
Okay.
easier for people to be able to get
Great
to it. That
idea.
way it's at one location.
Yep, great idea.
Resolution number 19, approve special event Chapter 255 application for the Riverhead Railroad Museum Riverhead Railroad Festival 2025. Number 20, schedules a public hearing regarding the unsafe structure located at 40 17th Street, Wading River, New York, Suffolk County Tax Map number 600-52-2-23.1, pursuant to Chapter 219, Article 4 of the Riverhead Town Code. Number 21, adopts a local law amending Chapter 105 of the Riverhead Town Code entitled Boards, Commissions, and Councils, Article 18, Traffic Violations Bureau, liability for failure to stop for school buses. Number 22, authorizes the town clerk to publish and post notice to bidders for fertilizer and lawn chemicals. Number 23, authorizes town clerk to publish and post notice to bidders for police uniform items. Number 24, rejects bids for annual procurement contract and authorizes the town clerk to publish and post notice to bidders for rebid for annual procurement contract. Number 25, awards bid for street lighting and traffic signal maintenance repair parts. Number 26, authorizes the town of Riverhead superintendent of sewer wastewater to make application to State of Pennsylvania Regulatory Authority for sludge cake disposal. Number 27, extends agreement for Youngs Avenue landfill maintenance and monitoring. Number 28, authorizes supervisor to execute professional services agreement with H2M Architects and Engineers for Class A biosolids upgrade project. And 29, pays the bills. And just a quick note, as the board's aware, the resolutions were generated this week for the first time through the new agenda management software program that we're using, which is called Civic Clerk. So far, so pretty good. We had a few little hiccups. Town clerks have been really excellent, working together with IT, also excellent, working through all the issues, trying to iron out any little, kinks that we're coming across. So we just ask for everybody to be a little patient. We're going to do the same thing, of course, for the town board meeting coming up on Tuesday. It'll be the first time we're going to use this program for the town board meeting. So hopefully all goes well. We think it will. Everybody's working hard and working together to try to make it seamless, both for staff and for the public, but we just ask for everybody's patience. Thank you.
Excellent, very good. All right, we are about to go into executive session to discuss items under personnel. Will be matters surrounding a leave of absence for an employee with STRIPLIN-TIO. We have legal matters, matters surrounding code enforcement investigation with HUBBARD, PILO, Downs, and Buckner. And we have contractual matters surrounding a contractual agreement with the town of Riverhead and Peconic Hockey Foundation with Howard, DIPAOLA, COYNE, and TESTA. We have matters surrounding the sale of real property with Kern and HURLEY, and we have matters surrounding the sale of real property with Kern. Can I have a motion to close open session and go into executive session?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, open session is closed. We're going to head into executive session. Thank you for joining in with us today, and everybody have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Have a good weekend.